Welcome to part 3 of this series. In this episode, I want to get a little more personal about the information so far that I've shared with you in this last 2 episodes, as well as I want you to know that I'm sharing my opinion on phenomenon that does not fit with the popular SJW feminist or left-wing narrative, and that tends to get us in trouble. You know what I mean. So I understand if some listeners may be upset with what I have to say, but you have to keep in mind that these opinions of mine, they're based off not just my own experience, but also the authors of many material that have shared similar ideas and have had the ability to put their thoughts into published writing. So I suggest that you go look it up. I'll put as many links below as I possibly can. But who am I kidding? If you are an SJW, if that's who you are, then I suggest you leave this place right now. Leave this channel, unsubscribe, and walk away because you're only going to be triggered and feel unhappy. Go back to hiding under your politically correct rock so as not to upset your childish emotions. Now, let me continue by reading from the book The Tao of Health, Sex, and Longevity by Daniel Reed, and hopefully it will inspire discussion at the very least. Maybe it will help us understand who we are as men and where we stand, especially in the regards to men and their sexuality. Now, continuing from chapter 6.
The contrasting nature of male and female orgasm has important implications for two types of sexual activity that have aroused a lot of controversy over the ages and appear to be gaining in popularity today, and those are masturbation and homosexuality. Viewed from the angle of yin and yang, the results of these two activities are very different indeed for men and women. For men, masturbation represents an irretrievable and uncompensated loss of yang semen essence, while healthy males between the ages of 16 and 21 are veritable fountains of semen for whom masturbation is relatively harmless. By the time they reach 25 or so, all the old shibboleths regarding male masturbation come true. Weakness in thighs and knees, numbness in lumbar region, loss of vitality, depression, etc. By the time they reach 30, men should entirely give up this self-defeating habit and start conserving semen exclusively for intercourse with women. Men who continue masturbating habitually into their 30s, 40s, and 50s rob themselves of the very essence and energy that fuel their lives and protect their health. A woman, by contrast, she may masturbate to her heart's content without damaging her stores of essence and energy. In the polygamous households of ancient China, female masturbation and sapphism served important social and psychological functions in the harems of sexually beleaguered gentlemen. And since women do not reach their peak of sexual potency until their mid-30s, unlike men who peak out after 18, masturbation is likely to become ever more important to women as they grow older, since so many men begin losing their potency just as women hit stride around age 35.
Now, I want to say to my brothers here, I have read this book and I followed this book to a T when I was a young man at the ages of 21 to 23, 24, 25. And I followed it and I learned a lot from it. But I have to say I disagree with the author here. I do not believe that women peak out sexually at the age of 35. I don't believe it at all. I am now 40, and at my age now, I have had sex with women as young as, well, let's say 18 until 45. And I can honestly say that women do not sexually mature as far as their ability or desire any different than men. Yes, that is the popular concept, but I don't agree with it. The reason that men often are told that they peak out at such a young age is because they don't understand yin-yang. Women can get away with not understanding yin-yang and simply benefit from it because they don't have to. It's biological. Their ability to orgasm and reabsorb their own excretions is different than men, and I understand that. But I'll tell you this, a 35-year-old woman is not peaked in her sexuality, not at all. And I'll tell you this also, an 18-year-old girl is not piqued in her sexuality. And the difference is this: an 18-year-old girl, well, she doesn't understand what it means to fuck, all right? If you're an older man, you can teach her, but if not, she won't understand. A 35-year-old woman does understand what it means to fuck, but that doesn't mean that she will naturally be able to understand what it is to please herself and her partner. This goes both ways. The problem I have with the author of this book is that he puts the entire concept onto the shoulders of the men alone. But it's not like that. And in fact, in our history, women are so used to having men tell them how they need to be, they don't understand how to do it themselves. It's just very simple. So what I'm trying to say is that when you are choosing a mate, if you want to fuck them or have a relationship with them, having an 18-year-old fuck you and a 35-year-old fuck you, the only difference is their experience of fucking. Besides that, it's all up to you. And in the most layman of terms, everything that is being said here in this book and in the words of this author is simply this: you as a man, whether young or old, you can control sexuality. You can control sex. You can control the woman through sex if you choose to do it. But unfortunately, most of us, especially the young men, they are taught not to. This is what needs to be taught to young men: how to control your own sexuality so that you can better control the sexuality of the females that you come into contact with. This is what needs to be taught. And I will go more into this later, but again, let's continue on with the reading from this book.
The same point applies to homosexual relations. They are harmless for women, but highly detrimental to men, both physiologically and psychologically. Nature has made yin passive and yielding, and two passive forces, they do not conflict. The Chinese refer to sapphic love as polishing mirrors, a term that reflects the fact that female homosexual practices are largely limited to the rubbing together of similar parts, rather than actual penetration of the body. And even when the body is penetrated with surrogate phallus, it is done through the orifice intended for that purpose. Like masturbation, sapphism was a common practice in the household harems of wealthy Chinese families, where up to a dozen women might find themselves completely cut off from male company for months at a time when the man of the house was off on official business. Taoist physicians regard homosexuality among men, on the other hand, as a dangerous practice for several reasons. First of all, yang is by nature an active, aggressive force, and when two aggressive forces meet, a fundamental conflict of energies and intentions results. Male homosexuality requires that one partner yield to the other by adopting the female role, both physically and psychologically. And when this practice becomes a habit, it completely undermines the fundamental role of yang in the order of nature. Looking at this situation of yang conflict at a microscopic scientific level, when the sperm from two different men are mixed together and observed under magnification, they may clearly be observed fighting one another in a desperate struggle for supremacy.
Now, I don't know too much about microscopic levels of sperm and how they fight against one another. But one thing I can say from my experience is this: there is a dichotomy between gay men. In other words, gay men divide themselves between two pieces. One is the dominant and one is the passive, or one is the male and one is the female. Or, in other words, one is the penis that penetrates and one is the asshole that receives the penetration. Now, I've seen this so many times before among the friends that I've had that were gay. And I've asked the same question every time: are you the male or are you the female? And every one of them answered accordingly, either yes, I am the male, or yes, I am the female. And I found a very interesting thing that occurred when I ask these questions in my own experience, and you can share my experience with your own and all the gay people you know, and just see how it works out. But what I found was that the men that were let's say the male role, that played the male role, the one that was doing the penetration, they tended to be a little bit more masculine. Well, the men that took on the more feminine role of taking it in the ass, they tended to be more feminine. In other words, the gay men who were of a feminine role, they played that part perfectly in all their life, the way they spoke. They were your stereotypical gay man who looked and sounded feminine. Whereas the man who took on the more masculine role and had to do the penetration, because there's got to be some kind of penetration in sexuality, whether you're man or woman, the gay man who took on the role of masculine penetration, well, he tended to be more masculine. But the difference was he was willing to put his penis in the asshole of a feminine man. But that's what happens in the real world. Of course, you will not hear about that in the, let's say, popular media, because they don't want you to think about that. They don't want you to think about male sexuality or female sexuality when it comes to sex and the roles that they play. They just want you to say, accept the fact that some people like to take it up the ass. It's as simple as that. But anyway, we're going to continue on, and the next paragraph in what I'm reading says this.
Psychology aside, the greatest threat posed to men by homosexual practices are physiological. Anal penetration, the mutual exchange of yang, sexual fluids, and frequent uncontrolled ejaculations are the culprits. Ancient Taoist physicians noted a pathological condition called Dragon Yang syndrome, which occurred exclusively among promiscuous male homosexuals. Dragon Yang, or Lung Yang, is a common Chinese euphemism for male homosexuality, equivalent to the English word gay. Symptoms of this ailment include weakness and fatigue, skin ulcers and boils, low immunity, and impotence. The foregoing observations on the nature of yin and yang make it clear that man and woman are not created equal. Yin is abundant and enduring, while yang is limited and vulnerable. And this is reflected in the fact that throughout the world, women tend to outlive men by a factor of 5 to 10 years. The key to redressing this inequality is properly regulated relations between fire and water. As the Taoist alchemist Ko Hyung wrote in the 4th century AD, both fire and water can kill, yet both may also bestow life. It depends entirely on whether one knows Tao. If a man knows Tao, then the more he makes love, the better becomes his health. If he is ignorant to Tao, just one woman is sufficient to hasten his journey to the grave.